Woo woo.
This meeting is being recorded. Yep.
We did it. Well, good morning, guys. My name is Kate Story. I'm one of the artists who does quite a lot of work at the Theatre on King, among other things. And I'm here today with Sarah McNeilly and Daniel Smith, who are also artists who do a lot at the Theatre on King, among many other things in their lives. I'm going to just say a little bit about my involvement with the Theatre on King, and then maybe each of you would like to do the same. I pretty much, the only thing I don't really do at the Theatre on King is tech, if I can avoid it, although I have done it. But I've designed, I've written plays, I've directed plays, I've been in plays, which I like doing, of course, and yeah, done costumes and sets. So originated new work and been in weird existing plays. So over the years, yeah, I just kind of do a lot. It's run by Ryan Kerr, the artistic director, who's also my partner in crime and other things. So yeah, that's been a big part of my life since the space opened. Almost, gosh, over 8 years ago now. Sarah, do you want to talk a little bit about your involvement with the theater?
Sure do. Yeah, the Theatre on King, I believe it was Northrop Frye who wrote about the good, great place of the heart. And the Theatre on King very much is that place for me, as it is presently and as it exists in my memory. So I'm very privileged to be among one of the old hands who had the privilege of christening the stage in the inaugural series, Pennies from Heaven. And the Theatre on King has very much always been, since then, a part of my life, and very much a big part of my, I don't know, subject formation or being as well. So I'm always happy to support the space as much as I can and hope that it can do for others what it has done for me.
Yeah, you know, it's true. It's kind of our church, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How about you, Dan?
Well, you guys sounded great. I'm going to come up like a chimp here, but it'd be trite to say that the theater is like a second home, because I think it means a lot more to me from the day it first opened its doors. I've been privileged to perform in many productions over a wide variety of styles. I've got to work door. I've got to bartend a bit. Recently, I've been painting services black, and recently painted a different surface red. It has really been just a go-to place, I think, not just for my body, but mind and soul. I've had a chance to do productions there I never would have dreamed I would ever get that chance to do. And no, it'd be hard to imagine my own world or this world without the theater right now.
Yeah, it feels pretty, I don't like this word particularly, but poignant, because we have been closed, obviously, with the pandemic. And at this point, the Ontario government hasn't been very forthcoming about performing arts. So we are very unclear about what's going to be allowed and when. However, we are forging ahead. So this project is called Testing. And it's something that you came up with, really, Sarah, as an idea. And we're going to be performing, I guess I'll do, like, we can mention this more than once. We're going to be performing as part of Artsweek SHIFT². And we're going we're opening on Thursday night, and then we perform Friday night and Saturday matinee as well. And Artsweek SHIFT² has the schedule. You can find us online, and there's social media stuff about it. Testing. So Sarah, yeah, this idea of like performing online, I'm just going to rant a little bit before we get into the specifics of testing. So in early stages of the pandemic, well, actually all the way through, when I do run into people, and people have just sent me messages as well, and these are really smart people and people I admire, they say, why don't you do online theater? And that's something that I was a bit surprised. Like, it happened right off the bat with the pandemic that I started getting these sort of suggestions. Why don't you do online theater? And I couldn't really explain to people. I mean, I think anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a very technical person, and I'm not a huge online person, but that I wasn't coming from a negativity place about online work. But I think there's a general misunderstanding about just how great the resources need to be to do online theater. You can just point a camera at some theater. And we did immediately put up, all the videos that Dan English has done over the years for us. Wonderful guy, just comes in and videotapes our shows. And we did throw them up online and they're free for anyone to look at. But the idea of trying to charge for this sort of one camera, kind of one location performance just didn't sit right with any of us. And a lot of the stuff that we're seeing online, the performance stuff it's really well funded. Like something like the Royal Shakespeare, where they are able to edit together a beautiful document, even on the fly. They have several cameras, they have a lot of money, and they have people who know what to do with it. I was talking with visual artist Victoria Ward the other day, and she pointed out that online is really a whole other venue. And so for us to think that we can just take a live venue and just pivot, that word, online, misses, I think, a whole bunch of steps, and also just the huge amount of money and know-how that needs to go in to do it well. So there's something I found myself trying to explain to people in early days. And then what I found eventually, they didn't want to hear that. they wanted to hear that we could just do it, and that nobody likes a naysayer, right? And then I found what was effective. I would say to them, well, would you watch something that we did online, like a full-length performance? And they would pause and say, probably not. That was their answer. So I found that whole thing kind of interesting, that I think a lot of live venues, musicians too, theater, dance, we've been told we should go online. And at the same time, when you really probe what that means, it's not really possible to do well. And also, unless you have a huge amount of money, which most of us don't. And also, most people don't really want to watch it. That's kind of my feeling about it. So coming in here as a negative Nelly, what about you guys? What are your sort of feelings about online theater?
As a performer, I think I was a very resistant isn't the right word, but there's that straight, even though it's kind of like this artificial intimacy of the experience. I mean, like when we're doing this interview here, it's that you're face to face, you're very close to the people in the sense that you have sort of a captive audience, unless they turn their video off, and they have to listen to you unless they mute you. But I think to me, you're also a bit at the mercy of the medium as well too. I find with the kind of tech kind of stuff we're doing and watching that we're going into it, I find these almost like inane stresses about what if my computer set catches fire? Like what if it just like that? What if a satellite knocks out the internet? Then this whole project has been for naught. Whereas no, at least if they've walked into a theater, they're kind of at a mercy. They have the option to leave, to walk out of the theater, but. And watching other projects too, I think I sort of agree with you too. I meant to watch more, and then whenever I tried to watch them, I felt disengaged, got distracted very quickly, and I couldn't even get to the point that I was feeling guilty about it. So I just I didn't engage as much or watch as much as I should have, or thought I thought I should have.
Yeah.
Very much. Yeah. But I think we ultimately we're all really hoping that the doors open up and we're back performing live theater soon. That being said, the more I've done this, the more I'll be engaged. And I also thought this medium was kind of basically that it was just my face and the other person's face, and you talk and you don't move. And then in doing some projects now, oh no, you can move when you're on Zoom. You can have some fun with it. You can do some performance. You can still find some character. So it's remarkable that we had this opportunity in this pandemic to still kind of to connect and to perform. Like this technology wasn't here like when Kate and I started doing theater.
Correct. Yeah, the pandemic it would look very different if there wasn't an interweb, obviously. Mm-hmm. Sarah, what before testing, what were your thoughts about online performance?
It was something that I really didn't know much about, insofar as digital theater is a medium and has been around long before the pandemic. And just like you said, Kate, it is very much hybridized between taking some elements from live theater and some elements from film. And of course, as Kate has already mentioned, it requires
she's back.
It requires an incredible amount of not just funds, but labor and skills. And unfortunately, so many existing venues, companies, artists just lack the skills, the skill set and the expertise and the labor involved to pull it off. I mean, it's this huge machine that's existed. It's not just the type of thing you can say, oh, I think I'll try it. And I guess you can, and certainly experimentation is great, but I know so many artists, individual artists, there's this great fear of okay, I'll pivot, as they say, I'll try this out. And when you don't have that infrastructure of technology, skill set, and revenue required to pull it off, really you're compromising the quality of your work. And that's what's suffering. So sure, I can finger paint, but is it going to be something I'm proud of, or is it going to be just for the sake of finger painting? And I think so much of the expectations to go online just don't really translate when it comes to artists who are dealing in live performance. Part of what we do as theater artists and dancers and musicians, all of these things, it's very much predicated on a spatial and temporal element. I mean, it's just so strange, this entire pandemic, that one of the biggest things about theater for me is breath. We breathe together, the audience, we are having that moment that is visceral and such a bodily moment. And that's precisely what we ought not to be doing right now. So I think there's a sentiment for a lot of people that it's better than nothing, digital theater. And certainly it is, but I completely understand, and myself was also resistant to it, because maybe sometimes I hate to sound like a negative Nelly as well, but sometimes maybe nothing is better than good enough.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a feeling, which we're all professional artists, although we all also just work for free a lot, because that's the way performance is in Canada currently. But none of us who wants to look like a fool? I mean, let's face facts, unless you're in control of that fooldom, like a deliberately clowning situation. And that's not what online felt like to me initially. So basically for me, the story of testing started when, we knew that the Electric City Culture Council was deferring Arts Week. And then, we were all kind of, what's happening with Arts Week? And they were launching Artsweek SHIFT in stages, as I think they felt able. And then this opportunity to apply for funding came available. And Sarah, my memory is that, but correct me if I'm wrong, is that you approached us, at the Theatre on King, you approached us with this idea to do some online theater and to apply. We did go to some other places for some bigger projects, but this particular Artsweek SHIFT application really came out of your mind, I feel.
Yeah, I think, again, there were so many barriers to being able to try and experiment in this new digital medium and, way of creating. And when EC3 presented us with an opportunity to maybe be able to experiment, I thought, well, this changes things, because before, all I could think of were reasons why we couldn't do it. Whether it was we couldn't do it well, or we just actually couldn't do it. Of course, restrictions and access to technology and all of these things. So when the Electric City Culture Council presented this opportunity through Artsweek SHIFT, I thought, okay, now that so many of the barriers have been removed and we may actually be able to pull something off, is this something we'd like to try? And it's so interesting when there is a little bit of funding and support, how it changed things completely. And thought, yeah, let's give it a whirl. Let's experiment. Let's play.
Yep, absolutely. And for me, I remember this moment of excitement when we were meeting online and setting a rehearsal schedule. And I suddenly realized, because we have at the Theatre on King, we've tried a radio play that total theater interruptus, also a two-hander that we were workshopping, and then we had to stop doing that. I don't know if everyone listening is aware, but currently under lockdown regulations, even a solo artist is not allowed to be in the theater completely alone and live streaming. It is forbidden. So there's a lot we can't do. The kind of social distancing measures that apply in other sectors for some reason don't apply to the performing arts right now. Obviously, I have feelings about that. So yeah, there's a lot that we weren't able to do. And I remember, and we had all these attempts to make COVID safe projects that were safe, but we weren't permitted to continue. And then when we set the rehearsal schedule for testing, I had this surge of joy, because even though it's not a way I've ever worked before, I was like, we can do it. We can actually just set a rehearsal and then we can do it because we're allowed. We're just doing this online. So yeah, it was that bit of support, and really, really means so much, as you say, Sarah. So then, yeah, so Dan, Sarah approached you and said, how would you like to write and probably, and it's ended up being the case, perform a short monologue?
Mhm.
What were your?
Well, as we all know, it's impossible to say no to Sarah McNeilly on anything. She could ask you probably to end an innocent man's life with your bare hands, and you might do it because she is just such a force of nature. So it was good. I was very flattered and thrilled to be asked, because it had been so long since I'd written such a break from when I was doing sketch comedy and writing regularly for the shows at Theatre on King. So at first I was apprehensive and afeared. I spent a lot of time sitting, sometimes looking at the computer. What am I going to write? Wanted to do it. No one ended, because we hadn't quite set a schedule yet, except for it took a while to set a schedule. I had lots of time to write, and eventually I just kind of had to force myself to just start typing. And luckily, where I was in the situation, it was in a unique place. I was looking apartment sitting and cat sitting for a friend, and I just used what was around me. And one of the things around me was a neighbor who seemed to be isolated but focused on what they loved or hate to do, which was playing video games online. And a point we used to make, I think my friend and I made an insensitive joke was along the lines of they might not even know there's a pandemic going on. And I had that in my head. And then I was thinking, why am I talking this way about this person, and why am I feeling pity for this person? At least they have a routine. I was just like, I don't even know who's worse off here. We're both two sides of the same boat. So instead of, I think I thought maybe there'd be kind of a humorous element too. It became less of a humorous element. It became almost a sense of that was my connection, was this person on the other wall that I wasn't allowed to see, even though I never really met this person except in passing. So I think from that point on, then the project got a little less daunting. Then I got to add some silliness to it as well too, and then got to get some feedback on it as well. And I think rehearsing it was immeasurable, because at first I thought it would just be me spouting my words at the screen. But luckily, through the direction and through the rehearsal process, we've added something. Like I thought blocking was going to be done. I wouldn't hear the word blocking again until maybe September. But it was like, oh, we're adding blocking to this. This is incredible. So, and I think it's I would call it a roughly polished 11 minutes.
Yep.
Of poignancy.
Yep, absolutely.
And mirth.
Yes, there's a lot of mirth. For me, one of the things about a lot of your work, Dan, whether you're in a extant play, you could be in Shakespeare, and I would say this about you, and also your own work, that you created with Lads or other sketch comedy situations, that there's a incredible sadness right alongside this incredible high hilarity. And you're able to do both at the same time. And I feel like this piece delivers that. And so I've been directing it. And we also have a stage manager, Shannon McKenzie, who's been wonderful. And very useful to have stage management, which some people might think, well, that's silly. Why do you need a stage manager when you're working online? But in fact, someone to do the organization, be on book, take care of the few tech needs that we are going to have, has just been wonderful. And for me directing it, I thought, what's it going to be like? I certainly find I have less stamina. I think normally when I direct, I'm the person that has to be reminded that actors need breaks. I get so excited by directing that I can go on and on. I would say I get a little more fatigued, and you can only work for so long online, but mostly it's been exactly as stimulating as directing anything. And yeah, we started adding movement and there's costume, that's commensurate with the world of the piece. And I think the other thing about it is it acknowledges so much about the pandemic in a way that's engaging, not, oh, I don't want to be reminded of my misery and pain. It's actually moving and funny. And I think the length of it is also just genius. 11 minutes is about right. It's not a huge commitment. And I think that's something that all of us have talked about. I know, Sarah, you've been thinking about it from the point of view of somebody who's the project manager and wanting people to come and see it. So that's something I think you've said about the length of it.
I think very much just as, entering into this, it was first and foremost, like on a practical level, like, okay, we don't have much time, we don't have much resources. How can we experiment in this medium and create something that we're proud of? But also, how can we create something that responds to the context, the situation it's being created in? And that was something right from the beginning that all of us had agreed. I think we entered into this with a spirit of generosity in our hearts, knowing that you can't take a proverbial horse to water type thing, that this has been over a year of collective trauma for the entire world. There's that same storm, different boats kind of thing that we hear going around, but very much people are burnt out, they're exhausted, and they're struggling. This has been really hard for everyone, no matter where you are and what you're experiencing. And I think, the recognition that a lot of people have been forced to increase their screen time precipitantly, and maybe that's not an enjoyable thing for people. So how can we make a digital theater and ask people to have more screen time and make it enjoyable for them? And so one of the things right off the bat was having a really short work. Asking an hour is a lot. Asking 10 minutes, that's not asking a lot at all. And also just in terms of access as well, because of Artsweek, we're able to do it free of charge, which is wonderful for people. But also it was really important. I myself have tried to support, whether it be my friends or colleagues or whoever it is, I've really tried to tune in to digital theater throughout this pandemic. And it's hard. I'm my brain fog. I'm just not firing off at full capacity. And so I will either miss opportunities to register for something, or I'll register for something and totally forget I've done so. So we wanted to really accommodate people and understand that that happens to everyone, and that's okay. So one of the ways we've done that is to, with support from Artsweek, is to have multiple showings that people can register for well in advance or 5 minutes before it starts. And if you forget, if you miss it, that's okay. Wait 15 minutes and there'll be another one.
Absolutely. So I think that's just been a key part of delivering this. And Artsweek's been incredibly helpful. Gabe Pollock has been just so accommodating. And I'm he's sort of taken on a lot of that logistical stuff. But I couldn't agree with you more, Sarah, that, you always said from the beginning, we've got to leave it so that the last minuters, can still feel welcome. Because like you, I feel the same way. I work in front of a computer all day long. It's very hard for me to go to a computer for leisure at this point. But I can definitely show up for an 11-minute piece with, from artists I'm excited about, but I do think that building in a little bit of the spontaneity into our ability to watch this piece has been a big key of why I think it's going to work so well for people. Yeah.
I think also when I was first started writing it, when Sarah kind of came up with the idea of the name just testing, I was doing that. And then somebody gave me an instant framework. I said, I can split this up. I'm going to kind of make this short. I can make this 4 pieces. And I was thinking back a scene, when sometimes you see some theatrical productions that are going on a little bit long, but if there's a number in the title or there's a number of scenes in the program, as long as I can count down along with it, I can get through just about anything. This only has 4. This has 4 parts.
Yeah.
And to me, going through, and with the further difference, and obviously that they often tie in as well too, help with the memorization of it, obvious as well too. And I think for attention span, it's not me just blah 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 for 11 minutes straight. It's broken up by both choices I made with the characters, what he is ranting on about, and yes, and some spectacular costume changes.
Yes, they're so spectacular. No, I think you're right, Dan. And I think for me, not only does it work, will it work for the audience? I'm sure it will, to have these segments, but also I feel like it speaks to the world of this character who is particularly isolated And as Sarah's alluded to, this attention span issue that we're all noticing, that our attention spans have become those of gnats. And I feel like it's very true to this character that he even for his own self, he's breaking it down into smaller segments. It's about all he can handle, really, in some ways. I want to say too, I found it very profound, this thing about the neighbor and the video game playing, and does he even know there's a pandemic, and our perceptions of who needs pity and who doesn't. I feel like one of the things that has come out of the pandemic and has really influenced the design of testing is a kind of a little bit of self-care, maybe. I feel like in a way that I'm not very good at. I don't want to come off like, oh, I think I'm like so hardworking, but I'm not great at cutting myself slack. I think I'm always happy to cut other people slack. And then for myself, I'm like, I've got to just keep working until I'm sick and I drop down in a faint, and not that I do work that hard. I just feel guilty all the time. But I feel like there's a thing around cutting ourselves slack and working with what we have, rather than like working with the body and brain we brought today, rather than, some other better body and brain that we feel we should have. And I feel like there's some way in which this project, both in its design as Sarah conceived it, and then also the way you've interpreted and delivered it, Dan, that it's very compassionate. I feel like just every aspect of it, from the form of it to the humor and poignancy in the piece.
It's interesting. I'm just thinking right now, all of us have at some point or another worked on site-specific projects. And this very much feels like that. I think it's responding to the context and the site supposedly that we're working in, and like you can't plow through and ignore that this is online, even though maybe we don't want it to be, and this is a horrible soul-sucking pandemic, and we probably don't want it to be that either. But it's interesting that we're sort of taking the skills that we've collected as artists over the years and applying it to our best ability to this new uncharted territory.
Absolutely. A friend of mine early in the pandemic sent me this funny little thing that I guess was going around the email. It's called The Elephant in the Zoom. And it was about how, if you're having all these Zoom meetings and then things that are going on, like the person looks really unwell and probably they haven't washed in a long time, but you're not allowed to say anything. Or, the naked man running behind them, or like, so the elephant in the Zoom being, a worryingly dirty environment that this person's sitting in, whatever it is, right? You see all the beer cans falling over in the back, right? So there's the elephant in the Zoom, and there's a almost, not for me anyway, nauseating intimacy where, like right now, the three of us are on Zoom, we're looking at each other's rooms. It's kind of odd. It's not like having each other over to each other's houses. It's a very different feeling. And someone's even said that there's a fight or flight response that Zoom triggers, because normally if you're this close to someone's face, you're either having sex with them or they're going to bite your face, right? So that apparently our little nervous systems are getting worked up when we're on Zoom, whether we know it or not. So I feel like it is a big act of trust to ask an audience to. It's an act of trust to do in live theater, of course, but it's an act of trust to ask them to come and spend some time, with us in this way. And Dan, I can assure the audience that spending time with this character that Dan's created is a very worthwhile thing to do, for sure. Well, we don't have much longer. We're going to get cut off. Any other thoughts that either of you have about testing or about online theater in general, or life,
I would just encourage people to tune in. I think you will be pleasantly surprised. I have Zoom fatigue. I've been spending far too much time on screens, and I was very shocked to see how cathartic tuning into testing and seeing this very quick, especially that day, I thought, oh, great, back-to-back Zooms. This is just what I want, another one. And it was such a lovely way to decompress from all those, like paradoxically, the cure for my Zoom fatigue was 10 more minutes of Zoom. And I just can't believe it, like, reset my brain and my body and just gave me so much hope that there are people doing things in spite of all the barriers and doing things very well and making the most of a horrible situation. And it gives me hope that one day, very soon, hopefully, we will be breathing together and watching the magic of live theater again.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful.
I think for myself, it was interesting when we first started doing this project. I think I really intended this to be as much of a, when I was writing a piece, I wanted the piece to be a distraction for everyone. I didn't really want to allude to anything about the pandemic or about really emotion. I think I was trying to write something very silly. And immediately within a couple keystrokes, when I finally got the fingers on the board, I couldn't. It wasn't, partially the guilt of not being creative, and then really, and just then sort of the guilt of, no, I can't, they shouldn't, we don't need a distraction from everything. We just need something maybe that can feelings that people empathize with. I'll be with some humor. It really helped when Sarah wrote a description of it and used the term tragicomic, and I was like, thank you. Okay, that's all I needed for the kind of go ahead. Yes, there's some humor in all this awful that has been or now for quite some time as well too. But there's some, there was some darkness, there was some sadness, there was so much loneliness. And really, if this can provide a brief respite and or reminder of your problems, then the author has done its job.
Absolutely. I just want to say that I know I'm directing it, so of course, I'm a little bit prejudiced, but I am super, super excited for people to see this. And I'm really excited too for when we can have conversations with people about this piece once they've seen it, once we can see each other in person. It's like, did you see testing? Tell me what you thought. How did you experience it? So yeah, for me, it's one little step closer to gathering again, as we've been talking about all along. And at the same time, it's its own way of gathering, and it's its own thing. And I'm really proud to be, and honored to be part of the Theatre on King's first foray into digital performance. And there may be more, even after the pandemic's over. We might, I think, to do hybrid live digital stuff is absolutely something, I'm now a believer. I've been turned. I think we can do this.
And how?
Yeah. Well, listen, thank you.
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you so much to both of you, Dan Smith and Sarah McNeilly. Thank you to Electric City Culture Council, and big thanks to Trent Radio for Jill Staveley's doing this Sunday night art show. It's kind of like the conversations at the cafe that we can't have right now. So super, super excited to be part of all those things. Thank you so much, guys. And we'll see each other online soon.
Oh, thank you, Kate.
Yes.
Yes, we will.
June 10th to 12th.
Testing.